Jordan B Peterson says he has found the cure for alcoholism, and the fact is a lot of people are not going to like it. Let's get into it.
Researchers know this too. About the only cure for alcoholism that's ever been discovered is religious transformation. All the atheist researchers know this too. They don't know why.
Right.
But I believe the reason for it is actually quite straightforward, is that if alcohol really works for you, it calms anxiety, it increases hope, it increases the sense of belonging. It's an extremely useful source of calories. It's a blast, it's fun. Like, why would you give that up? And the answer seems to be, you have to find something better, right? You have to find a spirit that's more nourishing. The 12-step programs are, of course, predicated on that. If you have a addiction, if you're hooked on something that's immediate and instrumental, you can't just stop doing that. You have to replace it with a much more profound source of gratification.
I have worked as a substance abuse counselor for more than 13 years, and I've been in recovery myself for nearly 20, and that's how I know that this meaningful solution to alcoholism is something that works. If you would, please like, share, and subscribe on the way in. Let's look at what Jordan Peterson says out of a clip of one of his biblical series about alcoholism and curing addictions.
About the only cure for alcoholism that's ever been discovered is religious transformation.
I should start off by saying that once I started drinking, alcohol really worked for me. I was a person high in trait neuroticism, and so the temptation of being able to just feel a little bit better about my anxiety was working. When I started drinking, I loved it almost immediately, and so that's why I took to it for about 12 more years, even though I had OVIs and I started to present a lot of consequences. And what Jordan B. Peterson says initially is that religious conversion is one of the only ways to come off of alcoholism. And this is really a discovery which took place about 100 years ago as the founding of AA, the program of AA and the 12 steps in the mid to late 30s, really with the primary purpose that they had was to try to instill a relationship with God between the individual who is drinking and their sobriety. So it was paramount, and it says, as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. And that express purpose is to carry the message of God and what He can do for you to other people. And so this isn't a new discovery, but it is one that a great many would refute. And part of the reason why Alcoholics Anonymous has become less popular is because people see it as too religious. And as someone who I have been a friend of the 12-step programs for a great many years, I would say that as my clients go into trying to sober themselves up, they think Alcoholics Anonymous is too religious, which in fact it is very universal, very blanket, very open to interpretation about who and what you make God to be. But the fact that our liberal world order cannot tolerate religiosity means that they just had to push into secularism. And so they make themselves unpopular among both groups. Those who would like it to be strictly Christ-centered or biblically based are disappointed because it's too universal. And those who would like it to be atheistic or secularistic are disappointed because it's too religious. And so AA is falling out of favor, and the numbers of people who attend AA are actually declining.
All the atheist researchers know this too. They don't know why.
Right.
But I believe the reason for it is actually quite straightforward, is that if alcohol really works for you, it calms anxiety, it increases hope, it increases the sense of belonging.
As our society has less and less peer-to-peer social interaction in person, it would make sense that alcohol might be a temptation for more people, because social anxiety is much more prevalent among people, generalized anxiety disorder too, among young people. And so the social lubricant facet of it that Jordan P. Peterson mentions in this clip definitely speaks to a need in our time, and the fact is that it does work. It does give you a sense of belonging. The cheers mentality that we had in the 80s and 90s and early aughts is no longer there. The bar mentality, the bar lifestyle is still a thing. It's still a thing among many of my clients, but it's more of the Gen X and older millennials and boomer generation that are still seemingly participating in high numbers.
Extremely useful source of calories. It's a blast. It's fun. Like, why would you give that up? And the answer seems to be, you have to find something better, right? You have to find a spirit that's more nourishing.
In this clip, Jordan B. Peterson says that alcohol is frankly fun, and that if you are going to be able to give it up, you must add in order to subtract. And this is something that I say persistently. If you want someone to abstain, or if you yourself are looking to evacuate several hours a day away from your phone, the way to do that is to provide an addition into your life, something that is providing value and taking up space. Cancer grows in a vacuum. When your cells are not present, that's when cancer begins to form. And that empty space, if you just subtract alcohol or any other substance use or any other just addiction from your life, if you subtract that and you don't add value in, and ultimately it is a God-sized hole and a God-shaped hole when people are persistently leaning into their addictions. It could be a father wound, it could be a God wound, it could be a church hurt that they are trying to overcome, but ultimately all people have an innate desire to pursue a relationship with a heavenly Father, a perfect Father, and that sometimes leads to us being so scorned by our earthly fathers because we want that to be a perfect relationship. Ultimately, the God-sized hole in all of us is the reason why alcohol works, and you must fill that with, yes, a God of your understanding, according to AA, in order to be able to overcome alcoholism. But the specificity of it, I find to be ironic, because if we were an Alcoholic Anonymous participant and they say, find a God of your understanding, and he does provide for you, you do end up staying sober, you are able to combat your alcoholism, then wouldn't you spend the extra time to take that understanding of God to his logical conclusion? Where does that take me? Is religion a viable vehicle? Is this where God exists and lives and tries to serve and teaches people? Because if God is taking the alcoholism away from you, one of the hardest and greatest things that's probably ever happened in your life, would you not want to investigate further and try to find out who and what and why, most importantly, why God would take that from you?
On that, step programs are, of course, predicated on that. If you have a addiction, if you're hooked on something that's immediate and instrumental, you can't just stop doing that. You have to replace it with a much more profound source of gratification.
Alcohol and other substance use, especially when used persistently, provides, essentially it leads into taking you into balance. So if you end up not using on any certain day, you are out of balance. You won't have the amount of dopamine that would be necessary to provide for goal-directed activities during the day without the drug. And so in order to be able to overcome that, you go through your withdrawal symptoms, which might be a week to 10 weeks, depending on the substance, how long you've used it, the frequency, intensity, and duration of your use. And then once you're able to overcome that actually acute withdrawal stage, then it's up to us to try to fill it with something else. And the first incentive is usually someone's family, because our social contracts, the relationships we have, are what are most important and most compelling. Nobody ever really comes into addiction from an island and says, I'm doing this for myself. Because ultimately, if everyone else has been rigid with them and they're completely alone, they're not going to want to do it for themselves. They will continue to use because they have no incentive to stop. Now, of course, there will be exceptions. Someone will give me an exception. Great. I'm glad you were alone and you were still able to abstain, but in a great many cases, it starts with family first. That is the incentive. And then it leads into a relationship with a God that might actually have the power to arrest your substance use when nothing else could, because that's where I was. The last thing I wanted as a solution to my alcoholism was God, a relationship with God. I thought I was too intellectual for that. I was too agnostic for that. I was too liberal for that. There was no way that that was going to work. But the fact is, it is precisely what I needed. And God humiliated me in order to humble me so that I would actually be wise enough to begin to take suggestion and to begin to take that in. And as a typical young 20-something-year-old man, 23, when I got sober, I wanted nothing to do with authority. But God is still good, and he captured me. And yes, I believe Jordan B. Peterson, he's really espousing the ideas that were founded in the AA program in this little clip, and I do believe that he is onto something, but is something that we should need reminded of, because over the last 100 years, AA has absolutely grown and then fallen off of a cliff in its attendance. Some of that is having to do with the other programs that are available, like Celebrate Recovery, like Narcotics Anonymous. But the fact that our addictions continue to grow society-wide, and the amount of attendance of AA continues to decline society-wide, means that we all need this reminder that Jordan B. Peterson has to offer in this clip, that the real answer to solution to alcoholism is a relationship with God. And if you would like to hear more from a Jordan Peterson acolyte, if I could ever call myself that, I'd be really proud. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'd love to continue to have your support.